What about second breakfast?
Time for second breakfast.
What's up, everybody? Monster from Breakdowns for Breakfast here with another episode of Second Breakfast. Today is November 20th, and last night, the wife and I, along with friend of the show, David, went to a very cool concert. We went and saw the Rock Orchestra. Now, this started off, friend of the show, David, decided that he was going to go and asked if me and my wife wanted to go with him. So we said, sure, sounds pretty cool. Didn't know much about it. And we were like, yeah, we'll go. Let's check it out. Boy, am I glad we went. It was so much fun. Now, the show took place at a place called the Stephen Tanger Center in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is about a 3,000 person theater. I've seen Daniel Tosh do stand-up there. We've taken our girls to see like Sesame Street there. They have live music. They have, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson did a lecture there a couple of times. So it's a really cool space. And so this was really cool. Essentially what the Rock Orchestra is it's basically a group of classically trained musicians doing rock and metal songs in an orchestra style. Violins, violas, cellos. They even have a brass section. And they're doing everything from classic rock to more modern stuff. They even sprinkled in a little bit of new metal. And I've got the set list here that I'm going to tell you about. But it was great. It was a lot of fun. The stage setup was wild. So part of the shtick was it's the Rock Orchestra by candlelight. So when I didn't know what to expect from the crowd, the stage setup, like no expectations whatsoever going into this. But when we walked in, they had these huge pillars of skulls covered in candles on either side of the stage. And then two great big skulls at the corner fronts of each side of the stage with candles on it, candles lining the front, and then this great big skeleton head right slap dab in the middle of the stage in the back. There's also some stained glass things in the back of the stage too. And that great big skull in the back was really wild. Probably 10 to 15 feet tall, maybe more. It was huge. But anyway, it just had like this like gaping maw, and it was really creepy looking. So, however, what made it even cooler was as the show went on, that thing would start to move and it would like sway back and forth. And I'm not certain, but I think at one point they were actually moving its jaw to simulate like it was singing the song. Because that's another thing. When we saw little clips of this, because before the show, we were seeing ads for it on social media left and right. And it looked very like you would see it when you go see a quartet or something. People sitting down with stringed instruments. And yes, they had on masks that were like kind of bedazzled and jeweled, and the candlelight setting. But it seemed very much like you would see if you go see classical music. Well, not so much. It's more like a rock concert. It's just they're all playing classical instruments. Because not only in addition to that stage setup, but there were parts where they would shoot smoke into the air and all kinds of crazy lights. And they had vocalists as well on several songs. And so they would, like, in addition to just playing the songs, they're performing. They're running back and forth on stage. And probably my favorite member of the group or whatever, she was the lead violinist, and she was essentially the lead guitar player. So whenever they would do these classic rock songs with these big guitar solos, she'd walk to the front of the stage just like, Slash or Van Halen would, stand right there and just rip these solos on violin. It was super rad. But it, like I said, we had no expectations going in. We had seen maybe a clip or two, but really didn't know what to expect. And we had a great, great time. So a little bit of information about the Rock Orchestra. I didn't do a bunch of research. Like I said, we went to this last night, and I wanted to go ahead and just spew all my thoughts while they were still as fresh as can be. But they're actually from the United Kingdom, and they got started in 2020. So this is a relatively new thing, but it's really cool. I want to say it was somewhere, there was like 10 to 15 members, because they had a drummer and a percussionist. They had a group of, I want to say, 2 violinists, a viola player, a cello player, upright bass, and then they had, they call it a brass section, but it was essentially 3 guys, trumpet, saxophone, and trombone. But what was really cool is the guy that was playing saxophone would also play the piccolo flute. And then they had, I want to say, 3 vocalists, 2 girls and a guy. And they didn't sing on every song. It was sort of like every couple of songs. And that's the one, I don't want to say criticism, because everybody was incredibly talented. But sometimes when the vocalist would join in, it got a little bit like musical theater, because instead of just like singing the songs, they were very performative, especially the male vocal. The male vocal, he almost seemed like a parody of like an 80s hair metal guy. But that was just part of the show, I guess, is instead of just standing still and singing the songs, the vocalists come out and bounce all over the stage and are real theatrical with their arm movements and stuff. And like I said, but it was cool. Like, I think it was a little jarring at first, especially because, and I'm going to read you the set list in a minute, the first couple songs didn't have any singing. So when she came out, and the first girl came out to start singing, I kept calling her Lydia Dietz, because she had like black hair, kind of short but pulled up, and she had on this red and black dress. And it was, she was cool. And then, yeah, so when she first like bounced out on the stage, she was very energetic and animated. So it sort of was like, oh, okay, this sort of doesn't, it's not that it didn't jive with the rest of the vibe, because like I said, this wasn't a stuffy orchestra thing. They're standing up and lights are going all over the place, but it just felt a little less serious, I guess you could say. But once you kind of warmed up to it, it was like, okay, I kind of get this now. But so I'll read you through the set list, and it was pretty cool. So they started with Kashmir by Led Zeppelin, and that actually, okay, so it was only the second song that they brought out the vocals. Okay, all right. So the first song was Kashmir, which, that makes sense, because that already has some strings and has a kind of an orchestral feel. And then they went into Numb by Linkin Park. And I think that, not that this was a bad first impression of this vocalist, she is really good. But that's not the easiest song to sing in the world. And but she did a good job. Like, once we kind of got into the vibe of everything, by the end of the song, she was like ripping it. But again, has a little bit of an orchestral thing. Then they went into Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. And this was fun because there is no vocals. They just did like the melody line using the instruments, or the vocal line using the instruments. It was really good. And then, like I said, when the guitar solo came, that first violinist, she ran out there and just shredded on the violin. It was really cool. And then, this was a surprise for me. Next, they did Dream On by Aerosmith. Now, I don't know if I've made my feelings on Aerosmith very clear on the show. I don't like Aerosmith. I think Steven Tyler is a piece of shit, and I really don't like Aerosmith's music. I think their version of Dream On was 1,000 times better than Aerosmith's version of Dream On. It was very cool, and that same female vocalist sang it, and she did something a little different than what Steven Tyler does with the kind of stuff that he does, but it was great. It was really, really good. I enjoyed that a lot. Then they did Stairway to Heaven, another Zeppelin song, and it was okay. I mean, it was Stairway to Heaven. But then they did Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones. Now, this was fun because it almost reminded me of like those modern day movie soundtracks where they'll take a popular song that might be a little upbeat and slow it down and make it real epic. That's kind of what they did here. This is when they brought out the male vocalist for the first time. And it was cool, man. I hesitate to say it was better than the original because, I mean, Paint It Black is a pretty cool Rolling Stone song, but those lyrics really took on this like level of gravitas being performed this way. So it was a really cool version. Then they did Bring Me to Life by Evanescence. Now, I actually think they brought the vocalist back out, the female vocalist along with the male vocalist. And I actually think she did a great job and he felt a little bit silly on this one. It still sounded good. They still did a really good job. Just the nature of the instrumentation, some of the like ja-junt aren't quite as like impactful because you don't have the guitar and the bass guitar. But on the stand-up bass and the cello, it still has a great vibe to it. It was cool. Then they did Welcome to the Jungle, another Guns N' Roses song. This, again, no vocals. They just used, I think on this one, they actually used a horn for the vocals. And it was really good. And then they finished the first set with Toxicity by System of a Down. No vocals. And it was good. It was really good. They did the vocal melody using a violin, and it really just fit really good. So then they took a break. And when they came back, they started with Sonne, Sonne. It's a Rammstein song. And this was the first song that it was like, I know this, but I don't recognize it. And I told a friend of the show, David, I said, I think this is by Rammstein, but I'm not 100% sure. And then check Setlist FM after the show and was like, yes, I got it right. Good, but not great. So being in cover bands that would do multiple sets a night, this was a common thing. You basically start your second or third set with a decent song, but you know people are going to start trickling back in. So you don't hit them with something like huge right at the beginning. You kind of give them a minute to like get back into the room. So then after that, that's when they hit you with a big one, and they did Welcome to the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. This was a lot of fun. Essentially, the trombone player did the vocal melody on this one, and they sort of kind of like skanked around the stage a little bit. It was fun. Now, around this time is when I said, I want him to rip something like metal. Like, I want to hear him do like Aces High or The Trooper by Iron Maiden or like Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning by Metallica. Like, I want to hear the violins do that kind of a riff, you know. Almost got what I asked for because the next song was Ace of Spades by Motorhead. This was pretty good. The male vocal did the singing on this one, and he really did a good job on this one. Not my favorite song in the world, but they did a great job of it, and it was a lot of fun. And then after that, I did get Metallica. But it was Nothing Else Matters. They brought out a different vocalist for this one. She was great. This was great. If you've ever listened to the Metallica S&M, it wasn't all that different than that. Just, you know, obviously there's no actual guitars, but it still had that same sort of feel, which I actually think the S&M version of Nothing Else Matters rules. So I thought this was a great cover as well. So then the violinist kind of showed off a little bit, and they did Storm by Vivaldi, which is actually a classical piece. Which led very nicely into Thunderstruck by AC/DC, which, you know, I'm not a big AC/DC fan, but I thought it was great. Those like that na 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 on the strings was fun. And then they did Take Me to Church by Hozier. I could have done without this one. Calling that rock is a bit of a stretch for me. I don't like that song. And the girl who sang it did amazing. This was the same girl that sang Nothing Else Matters. She has a little bit more, I don't want to say operatic, but the other girl had sort of a I don't know, a little more of a pop vocal, and this other female vocal is a little bigger and grandiose. So it was fun. And then they did Zombie by the Cranberries, and I got to tell you, I'm glad so many people like this song. But it's never been a big one for me. I didn't love it when Bad Wolves did it. I don't know. Lyrically, it's a deep song, and I respect that. I think the Cranberries version is the best version. But the orchestra did a good job with this one. It was cool. The vocals again, she's doing the and I mean, even the actual Cranberries version sometimes is a little like, I'm not in the mood for this. So I didn't love that. But then they ended the set with Chop Suey by System of a Down. And this was a lot of fun because they played it instrumental until the Father, like, in section. And then they brought out all three vocalists for that and really, and because it's a rock orchestra, of course, they're going to leave the stage and keep the house lights down and make you cheer for an encore. So that's what they did. And they didn't draw it out very long, which is good because people were leaving left and right, which I still don't understand this. But they came back out and they played Inner Sandman by Metallica. Now, again, I wanted something a little bit more thrashy, but man, this was absolutely the highlight of the show. They were full of energy. They just, perfect, absolutely perfect. If I'm sure there's a video of it on YouTube or something. They have a ton of stuff on YouTube and Instagram, and I just released an album of all these songs of them performing them in the studio. Check them out doing Inner Sandman. I can't even put into words. It was so much fun. Everybody on stage, you could tell, was just 100% in. The vocalists were still a little bit like musical theater, but they were locked in. It was great. It was definitely, for me, the highlight of the show. But yeah, this was really a lot of fun. We, like I said, had no idea what to expect, and exceeded any expectation I might have had. It was so much fun. I don't know if and when they'll be coming back. I'm assuming they will at some point. Check it out. It was really, really good. Because, I had heard like the Vitamin Quartet versions of songs. You probably maybe you didn't even realize it, but like I have the one for 311, of course, but they've done it for Disturbed. I think they've done it for Korn. They've done it for System of a Down, I'm sure. But it's basically this quartet that learns these rock songs and then plays them, classical music style. And that's kind of what I thought I was going to get. But this was a lot bigger and a lot more bombastic than that. And it was a good time. So yeah, this was another, example of how I like to go and see just about anything that involves live entertainment and live music. And it was a lot of fun. So, yeah, if you've never seen the Rock Orchestra, I'd highly recommend checking them out. If you have seen them, let me know what you think, if you had a good time. And, yeah, I hope you have a great day.